we will talk about rhetoric and composition, what rhetoric is and what is rhetoric. That's something we will discuss today. Rhetoric and composition, talking about rhetoric and composition, we would like to talk about its history a little bit. When we talk about history, it dates back to Socrates, the time of Socrates. So so rhetoric can be defined as an art, a art of, or technique of, persuasion. How you can persuade someone, either through speech or through writing. But the way it developed, the idea of rhetoric was through the time, from the time of Plato and Aristotle, where they would interact with their disciples, in dialogic form, and through dialogue they would try to convince each other, and the idea of rhetoric was simply persistent in a speech, not in writing. But later, this rhetoric and compositions developed, and it was, and people had, and then they started applying it to the art of writing as well. So how we can make, whether that's an act of speech or an act of writing, more persuasive is through its certain elements that we apply to it. Could be the style of writing, if it is in writing. If it is in a speech, the style it consists of the choice of words, the diction, and how you present the ideas. These are some of the elements that come into play when you talk about rhetoric and composition. Okay, so going back to again, the idea of rhetoric. Aristotle's basically talk about the rhetorical appeals, and those are that have to do with the how you can persuade your audience through certain techniques and purposes of persuasion. And basically, these days the idea of rhetoric has been used as a strategy to conceptualize the argument. And written rhetoric was brought into being between 1800 to 1910. Before that, they never realized the importance of rhetoric in writing. It has something to do with speech. So going back to the components and structure of rhetoric, there is classical arguments is made up of five components in the following order. Those are the exordium, the introductions and opening or a hook, narratio, the context or background of the topic, how you would bring the context into play, the background, and proposito and partio is a claim stance, the argument, the claim you make, and confirmatio, the refutio. There might be the negative and positive sides of the argument. That could be the two different stakeholders brought into play while making your claim or argument. And prioritio, the conclusion and call to action. That's how you wrap it up. So these are the components and the structure of rhetoric, in the classical argument. Okay. And going back to the again the composition rhetoric, when we tend to define rhetoric as a theory in a composition, or it could be a body of information, organization, structure, context. Rhetoric mostly concerned with writing in this context. So we have a separate department even at the university, with the department like rhetoric and composition, and that has been a very important topic, and that is applied to any area of study and any the field, because in our daily life, in our day-to-day life, we have been persuading someone to do something. Okay, directly or indirectly, and we have been doing this, the practice, the art of rhetoric in our daily life. And then again, this under rhetoric and composition, we will write, we analyze, we compare, writing an informative essay, an argumentative essay, and all has to do with how to write, how to compose, how to organize, how to persuade, and how to conclude. Has something to do with the idea of composition and rhetoric, and that we have been doing in our daily life all the time, as I said, whether that be in the act of speech or in the act of writing, whether you are allowed to write an academic essay or even an essay, or any kind of writing in any sort of a genre, you have been bringing this element into play, in terms of persuading your audience. Okay, so when we talk about composition rhetoric, these concepts of persuasion, this concept of organization, the coherence, the organization, the structure, the content, the context always come into play, and that has and that is what rhetoric has to do with. So, talking about rhetoric again, what is rhetoric? When we try to define rhetoric, there are different definitions. Aristotle defined rhetoric as the art of observing in any given case the available means of persuasion. So, rhetoric has something to do with persuasion. Again, Kenneth Brooke, he defines rhetoric: whenever there is persuasion, there is rhetoric, and whenever there is meaning, there is persuasion. And again, when we talk about rhetoric, it has something to do with language, something to do with persuasion, and something to do with the communication. The clarity in the writing or in a speech. The more communicative and you are in a powerful or in effective way, the better your communication becomes, and that has something to do with rhetoric. Rhetoric, I mean, these days rhetoric has been defined in many ways. One of the books here I have been reading, the Essential Guide to Rhetoric. This book, brings in both kinds of, pros and cons of rhetoric. Actually, when we talk about, it has a positive meaning of rhetoric, and at the same time, it has the negative meaning of rhetoric. For example, when the philosophers talk about languages and speech and the philosophy, they try to bring in, the idea of persuasion. But we know when it comes to the political pundits, they become more rhetorical, and that the idea of being rhetorical is more in a negative sense, that they want to bring in flaws and conspiracy theories and all kind of stuff to persuade the audience. And there are also different ways. So when philosophers become rhetorical, they try to become very persuasive in a more logical way. But when political pundits try to be become rhetorical, that means they try to be more conspirational, try to bring in more flaws and rumors and things like that, and try to create a sort of an illusion on the part of the audience. So in terms of the context and who use it for what purposes, there are different the ideas of being rhetorical, in negative sense and positive sense. So that is one of the definition of rhetoric. And similarly, when we talk about rhetoric, the especially three elements: logos, pathos, ethos, and kairos come into play. When I'm talking about logos, pathos, ethos, and kairos is more about the timeliness of the subject matter, but logos has to do with the emotion. Sorry, the evidence, the statistics, the facts. The pathos has something to do with the emotions on the part of the audience. Logos has more to do with the facts and evidence. Pathos has more to do with the emotions, and that is on the part of audience. How capable you are to arouse or produce emotions on the part of the audience. Ethos comes from the author's credibility. Who is the author, who is the writer writing something on the topic, or who is the someone a speaker who is saying something on that particular topic. So those are some of the interesting things that we need to talk about in terms of persuading the audience. So that has something to do with logos, pathos, and ethos. So again, this is the Aristotle's triangle of the rhetoric. The writer is here, and there is audience, and there is rhetorical knowledge. Let me show you it very clearly. So knowledge, rhetorical appeals. So these are the rhetorical appeals: ethos, logos, and pathos. So when you are writing something, how effective your piece of writing depends on how capable you are to bring in or to introduce these three elements in your writing. Again, talking about rhetorical analysis, if someone gives you a piece of a text, and then you are told to analyze that piece in terms of those the three elements of rhetoric, ethos, pathos, and logos. These are some of the questions that you might want to ponder. Okay, and ask those questions yourself and try to answer them. That's how you can analyze how effective that piece of writing is. So again, So here is a speech. I have a dream. The link is there. Either you can watch this on YouTube, or there is a link. There are the many versions of I have a dream. You can listen to the speech by Martin Luther King, or even you can read it, and you can see how the appealing that piece is in terms of those three rhetorical elements, ethos, pathos, and logos. So you can also contemplate those three elements in the piece of writing, and then you better understand how effective that piece is. Okay, so if you read I have a dream, I have a dream, I have a dream, that's a repetition you have. And also there is a kind of a the elements the author, the Martin Luther King has used, which kind of persuades the audience out there and makes the speech very effective. And the choice of language, the choice of words, the syntax, the semantics, how the sentences are structures, and the paragraph are the organized. Everything matters to make you the speech or the writing more effective. So I have a dream is a kind of a very well-known example of a rhetorical piece, whether in speech or in writing, both. Okay, so talking about this, the I have a dream, so you can read it and then discuss in terms of rhetorical elements. And again, all of your writing is entirely public these days. The world is very the globalized, and also everything has been digitalized. So no matter what you write or what you read, everything has become public now. You post it to Facebook and Twitter, you have a blog and you post it to blog, and it become and then goes everywhere. Okay, so that's why everything is public these days. So again, so when we talk about the application of rhetoric, read these the speech by Martin Luther King, and even Obama's speech. You can read the Declaration of Independence, by the who is it? I just recently forgot. Uh, and then the Declaration of Independence. So everything that you see. And these days the knowledge of rhetoric really helps you with your career as well. If you are working for a company, and if you need to make your product successful, and if you have to advertise anything on social media or a website, you need to know the skills, the art, how to make your product you know how to let each and every people, the public, know about your product, and make it more the effective. That way the people would be willing to buy it, willing to purchase it, whether that be in the field of creative writing or writing a composition or a research paper. This idea of rhetoric helps you a lot, depending upon the type of genre and the context and the audience as well. So you can apply this rhetoric to each and every area of study, and each and every field as well. So again, this you can watch this YouTube video over here. So this will take you to an advertisement, and then analyze it based on those three different the rhetorical appeals, ethos, pathos, and logos, and see how effective that advertisement is as well. Okay, whether that is really effective enough to persuade you, or it has a kind of a fallacy, which sounds like logical but actually not. Those are the things. So again, talking about rhetoric, it's not only in the words or writing. The idea of rhetoric can be applied to each and every the piece of text, whether that is your text itself, or the images, or the colors, or the fonts, and the links, and depending upon who the audience is, right? I mean, the red color symbolizes something revolutionary. Okay, and then white color represents the purity. So that's how even the color is communicating with you, depending upon the context and the culture associated with it. And again, the fonts, if you are writing for the website, or even for any or for your blog, how to compose, how to organize. Some of the paragraphs italicized, some of the paragraphs are the organized, are big or some small, and sometimes there are subtitles and the titles are bigger, right? And this is some of them are like the in capital letters. And it all has to do with the all have to do with the idea of rhetoric, how you want to communicate with the audience. based on that, you want to organize any structures and then change the font size and the color and everything, and that comes falls under the discussion of rhetoric and composition as well. So again, and in the writing process, this is what you actually do. You gather and evaluate ideas and information. You plan the document, draft the document, revise the document after you have the ideas in your head. So basically, this is what rhetoric is. Rhetoric and composition has some to do with writing or speech. Is the art of persuasion, how you want to persuade your people, and it has something to do with the language, communication, and persuasions. And again, as I said, there are different aspects of rhetoric as well. There are different elements that come into play when we talk about rhetoric. So read the articles, uploaded to Georgia View, and let me know what you think about rhetoric. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me know when we can further discuss. Great job. Thanks.